Hey friends, what is up? It's Olivia. I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm here to film a video that I'm super excited about because I am doing Ravenclaw house book recommendations. I was inspired by Riley over at Riley Marie, who did her own video of Slytherin house book recommendations, recommending books that she thought the Slytherin house would appreciate for their themes, their qualities, their characters, and so I thought I would do a very similar video from my own house, the Ravenclaw house. When I first did the Pottermore quiz, actually, like freshman year of high school, I was a Gryffindor, but since then I've taken it twice and taken many other quizzes, and it always comes up as Ravenclaw, so I've accepted who I am in the Harry Potter world. I've picked a bunch of books that I think exemplify the Ravenclaw house. I try to be diverse in my genres and topics, but I did find myself straying a lot to like sci-fi and fantasy for whatever reason. But without further ado, let's jump in and talk about these books. The first book I'm going to recommend, I feel like could fall into many of the different houses, but I see some Ravenclaw things happening here, and that book is The Sun is Also Starred by Nicole Yoon. This book follows Daniel and Natasha on two extremely important days of their life. Daniel is going to an interview for Harvard. He does not want to go to Harvard, he does not want to follow this path, but what his family wants for him. And then Natasha's family is getting deported that day, and she is trying everything she can to save their family at the very last minute. And their lives become sort of interwoven, intertwined, a romance ensued. It's a very beautiful book, but what I like about this book is I feel like Daniel and Natasha represent the two sides of the Ravenclaw house. You have Natasha, who's extremely logical, loves science, loves things that are based in fact and in reality, and then you have Daniel, who's a lot more artistic. He's a poet, he likes writing, he likes art, and I feel like that side of like logic and creativity really make up the Ravenclaw house. And as well, it's hard to describe, but in this book, Nicole Yoon inserts chapters that break up the narrative in which there is a third character or third voice kind of talking about the larger themes or small details happening in this novel that are kind of unnoticed by Daniel and Natasha, or they don't know the significance of these things. It's hard to describe, but I feel like a Ravenclaw would not only appreciate these characters and see themselves in these characters, but would like the way that Nicole Yoon implemented this interesting fact insertion in her novel. I have no idea how to explain it, but I feel in my Ravenclaw heart that this is a book for Ravenclaws. And everyone, but I feel like a Ravenclaw would appreciate that element. The next book I'm going to recommend is The Science of Monsters by Matt Kaplan. This book is fantastic. Every chapter is about a different kind of creature or monster that people have feared for a very long time, be it vampires, ghosts, werewolves, the Loch Ness Monster, things like that. And he breaks down where these legends and stories come from, if it's scientifically possible for these monsters to exist, if not, what natural or scientific element or event could have happened to make people believe that what they were seeing was a creature or a monster. It is such an interesting scientific fact-based way to approach fantasy creatures. I learned so much. There were so many really interesting facts about like science and history and legend that I just found so fascinating and really stuck with me. And so I feel like this book just screams Ravenclaw and the amazing, intelligent way it like digs deep into these creatures. The next book I'm going to recommend is Mr. Penumbras 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. I am not just recommending this book because it is about books, and that's like a cliche for the Ravenclaw house, even though I feel like that element is obviously one of the reasons I recommended it. But this book follows Clay, who gets a job at a 24-hour bookstore working like the late night shift, and begins to realize that there are a lot of odd people coming into this bookstore who are not buying books but borrowing books from a very special section, a section where all the books are written in symbols and not in actual words. And slowly but surely he becomes really invested and wrapped up in the mystery behind this. I love this book because it took a turn that I completely did not expect but absolutely loved, and I feel like a Ravenclaw would appreciate this book because there's so many characters who get invested in this story who are all geniuses in their own special way. You have a character who works for Apple, and so she's very brilliant when it comes to like computers and data and software. You have a character who works designing movie sets, so he's very artistic and very good at building things and finding those kinds of solutions. I just love and I really appreciate how this book showed all these characters bring something to the table, something that was important and should be appreciated, regardless of whether or not it was classified as typically book smart. And of course, the literary elements as well are really important to this book. There's so much to it that I absolutely love and that you don't even expect going in, and make it such a pleasure to read. The next book I'm going to recommend is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is a very well-known book. It follows Ender, who from a very young age exhibits extreme amazing intelligence, and because of that he's taken away to a school to train as a space cadet, to be another future fighter in the space war that humans are fighting against an alien race. I really am recommending this book purely based on the amazing intelligence that Ender exhibits. I think a Ravenclaw would really appreciate seeing this young boy who is so brilliant, who is amazing coming out with tactics and manipulating people and the world around him, but is of course burdened by that intelligence and finds it a bit of a curse as well as a blessing. So I feel like there's interesting questions that are going on about the impact of intelligence, the impact and the way that you should use your brain and use intelligence, and as well the sci-fi elements I think are so well done that make this book like such an intense adventure to read. The next book I'm going to recommend is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. This is the first book in his Dark Materials trilogy. This book is so complicated to explain the plot of, and therefore explain why I think it's a Ravenclaw book, so I'm not going to attempt too much. I'm just going to say that the magic system that Philip Pullman creates in this book I think is so interesting, and the way that he mixes like that magic system with science and with experiments and manipulation of science and manipulation of magic, I think was such a pleasure to read. I enjoyed the writing style and I enjoyed the characters as well, but what really got me into this book and made me want to read on was how curious I was about this interesting plot and interesting scientific magical dilemma that he was kind of creating, and I really wanted to go on and see how deep this magic and this science went, how much they affected the world around these characters. I just found it really interesting, and I think a Ravenclaw would be equally intellectually stimulated by the topic in this book. The last book I'm going to recommend is a classic. It is one of my favorite classic novels of all time, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. You all probably are familiar with the story about Dr. Frankenstein working to bring life and create life in a dead body. What I think a Ravenclaw would appreciate is that outside of just like the science in this book and the experiments, there's so many deep philosophical questions that are probed and asked about what it means to be human, what is like religion, how do we feel about God, how do we react to other people, what does it mean to exist in this world, to have friends, to be conscious of your existence. There are just so many interesting questions that are brought up in this book that I just know a Ravenclaw, like myself, would appreciate like reading and having those thoughts like planted in their head. I feel like after I read this book for the first time, it definitely planted some really interesting questions in my mind about like my place in the world and how I see my place in the world, and I think a Ravenclaw would really appreciate this book bringing those questions to the table. So those are my Ravenclaw house book recommendations. If you liked this video, please let me know, and maybe I'll do the rest of the house in the future, because it's actually really fun picking out these books and trying to figure out like where Ravenclaw elements came to be in them. Obviously go watch Riley's video for Slytherin as well. It is excellent. If you are a Ravenclaw, please let me know books that you think will be added to this list. If you are a different house, please let me know what books that you've read or books that you love that you feel like really exemplify the house traits that you are proud to have. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon with another video.